Alright, good evening folks, it's Enforcer Matt and welcome back to another short war video, and today we have big news coming out of Ukraine and the Middle East. But by far our biggest piece of news is coming out of Yemen, because right now we are seeing the US undertake a very large operation to attack the rebel forces inside of Yemen territory, and right now these are massive attacks taking place from Air Force assets and also naval assets as well, and this appears to be possibly a long-term confrontation with those rebel forces. So we have all the news on that today, as well as footage showing these attacks. We also have news as well that Ukraine launched another large-scale drone attack on mainland Russia last night and also into the morning, and we've seen several pieces of damage from these attacks. And also we have heard that the Tuapse facility that was struck the other day is still burning to the ground and the Russians cannot put it out. So it looks like it could be going very bad on that front. And we also have news that apparently during a Chinese training exercise in mainland China, a J-15, a fighter jet, crashed. They lost the jet, but the pilot was able to eject, and we have that footage today. But with that, we are now jumping into our first article, which goes to Global Military Info. And this is our biggest article of the day. Like I said, right now we're seeing massive attacks take place on the forces inside of Yemen right now, and it is going down in a big scale. Right now we're hearing that U.S. air and naval forces are sustaining a broad and intensive bombing campaign across rebel-controlled areas in Yemen, and as the strikes persist, the Iranian-backed militia issued a statement declaring this aggression will not pass without a response, and this escalation will be met with escalation. Very bold words there from a very pitiful rebel force. They said, should hostilities intensify, the United States may mobilize strategic assets such as the B-2 Spirit stealth bombers, a very menacing aircraft, and also the B-52H Stratofortresses to deliver precision strikes on hardened weapons facilities and key command and control nodes. Notably, B-2 bombers were previously employed in November 2024 to destroy underground fortified weapons storage sites. But just to clarify, as of right now, it is American fighter jets and also naval assets firing missiles into Yemen to take out these sites where the rebels are suspected of staying. So right here in our first photograph, you can see these are some large pieces of ordnance that are being sent in to strike these rebel sites, and you can see right here some smoke and aftermath from one of these hits. This appears to be near a large city in Yemen, and as you can see, there's all the smoke from it, and that was just one of the pieces of information we got out of this strike. So as you can see, a pretty broad and intensive bombing campaign across Yemen. But jumping into our next post here, this one goes to U.S. Central Command. And in this post right here, we actually got some video from CENTCOM showing the aircraft taking off that were taking place in this bombing campaign. So let's take a look at the video and see some of these carrier launches. And look at that, we have some, it appears to be F-15s taking off to head out there and go strike those rebels inside of Yemen. And as you can see, very beautiful right there. It makes you proud to be an American to see this much military might being deployed just like this. But look at that, tremendous to see. Full afterburner, it looks like, very, very nice. And very good to see. But once again, it's just a compilation video basically of carrier launches, but as you can see, very impressive, and they're sending a lot of aircraft in to take down those rebel forces. But with that, we're now moving into our next news article here, and this one goes to Barack Ravid, and he says the White House National Security Advisors tell ABC News that U.S. strikes in Yemen hit multiple rebel leaders and took them out. So as you can see right here, apparently they were targeting some of the top level officials within the rebel forces, and they apparently were able to strike them successfully, and they have been eliminated. So that is a success out of the operation that we're hearing very early on in the first stages of these strikes. So very big news on that front as well. But moving into our next article, this one goes to Elent News. And in addition to the top leadership being hit as well, we've also gotten confirmation from U.S. officials that U.S. air and naval assets hit dozens of rebel targets in Yemen, including their missiles, their radars, and drone and air defense systems. So it sounds like, based on this, that the U.S. is trying to take out their ability to defend the rebel territory, and that was the primary motivation behind these strikes, it sounds like, in addition to taking out some of the top leadership, because for them to take out the radars and air defense systems, they're basically trying to leave the rebels blind before they carry on the rest of the series of these strikes. So that appears to be a pretty clear game plan right here, and a pretty solid one, if I do say so myself. But jumping into our next one, we have another post from CENTCOM. And after the first round of strikes took place, we also heard another announcement from CENTCOM that they continued the operations against the Iran-backed rebels. So they went for another round, because they just were not satisfied with the first round, so they went for a second one. So right here you can actually see in the first photo that there's those rockets' red glare they talk about and the bombs bursting midair, right there with the American flag happening right there on the side of the ship. So what do you know, America pulled up in big style. But as you can see, there's another one of the F-15s, it appears like, right here on the carrier getting ready to take off. And also we do have a video of the missiles being fired from one of the naval assets, so let's take a look. And as you can see, there goes one of those missiles right there. That's the missile's glaring midair, as they say. But as you can see, it is taking off and it's heading out to its targets right there on video. So very impressive to see. But we also have one more video showing one of the strikes. So let's take a look at that too. So as you can see right here from the drone footage, it looks like one of those pieces of ordnance hit some target right there, and either that was a very large munition that came into the site, or there was a weapons depot here, one or the other, but it was a large explosion happening right there, as you can see on camera. So massive indeed, and crazy to see. But with that, we are now jumping into our next news article here, and this one goes to Alexandria C4. So in this post right here, we can see that Lavrov, which is Russia's foreign minister, also known as Horsehead, he's called on the U.S. to stop using force in Yemen and instead enter into a political dialogue with these rebel forces. But once again, I see the little attempt here by Lavrov to be cute and sarcastic. He's trying to basically refer to the Ukraine situation, because once again, the U.S. wants Russia to enter into talks with Ukraine to end the war. So now Lavrov's being cute and telling the U.S. that we should enter into talks with a rebel force to end that war. The only problem is, though, these rebels are not the government inside of Yemen. So, you know, it's not the same thing. It's not comparable, but Russia's taking the opportunity to be cute. And of course, we do not negotiate with these forces, especially ones that are trying to basically go out for blood against Americans. We don't negotiate against them, and we're basically just trying to take them out at this point. So this call for a talk is not going to be happening, and right now the U.S. forces are taking care of those rebels inside of Yemen. So that is the situation. But jumping into our next post here, this one goes to the Yemen Press. And let's switch gears a little bit. We're moving away from our Middle East news and onto our Ukraine news, because we do have a lot out of that region as well. And today we have heard a frontline report that 50% of Moscow's fuel supply is at risk after Ukrainian drone strikes on its largest oil refinery, and 337 drones hit Russia, targeting the largest ones and also key infrastructure sites in other regions. And the strike that they're referring to is the strike on the Tuapse oil facility, and it was struck the other day by I believe a Peklo missile, the new missile that Ukraine has in their arsenal, which is like a loitering drone type of munition. It was struck by that. And also, speaking of Tuapse, by the way, they still haven't put that fire out. So moving into our next post here, this one goes to Max24, and we can see that on day 3 of the Tuapse oil fire, it is still raging, and it's also spreading as well. So let's take a look at the video and see the devastation still taking place on the facility of Tuapse. And taking a look right here, you can see there is Tuapse, and there it is, still burning into day 3. And I don't see any fire department vehicles anywhere near there. I don't see water like spouts going off or anything like that. So whatever the case is, I think they're just letting it burn at this point. They're just going to let it burn to the ground. So as you can see, not going well in Tuapse, and once again, a large portion of Russia's oil is at risk with this facility burning. So with that, we're now moving on to our next article, which also goes to Max24. And in addition to all that bad news for Russia, we also heard that there was another UAV attack launched literally just moments before I started making the video, and apparently the UAVs are coming from Ukraine and they're going over the Kursk region in the direction of Oral Russia. And also we've seen other UAV danger in Lipetsk, Kaluga, Tula, and also guess what? Moscow maybe again. So we're seeing some similar areas be hit once again, and we don't have the details on it because it literally has just started happening during the making of the video. So we'll have that for the stream time tonight to report on tonight's news. But with that, we're now jumping on to our next article, which guess what? Goes to Max24 once again. And in this one right here, we do have some initial footage coming out of drone flying into Krasnodar Krai. So we do have some footage and picture evidence here. So let's take a look at our first picture. And as you can see right there, there is one of the drones flying in. A very fuzzy picture, but as you can see, that appears to be a Ukrainian-style drone flying right into Krasnodar Krai as we speak. So let's take a look at the video and see the drone flying in.
Пиздец.
And as you can see, the Russian is shocked, and there's the drone right there. You can see a blip of it right there in the middle of the screen behind that very massive watermark. And there it is flying in. You can kind of see it right there in the center, and it's flying right into Krasnodar Krai, and it's about to take a path downward in just a moment, but sadly, we will not see exactly where the target was when it goes down. So this is about all we can see from it, but as you can see, there it is still flying in. But with that, folks, we are now moving on to our next news article here, and this one is going to go to Null Reports. And then earlier this morning, before this new drone attack started, we also saw something else catch on fire as well, and we're really not sure if this was caused by a drone or what it was caused by, but it does appear to be some form of attack by Ukraine, most likely. It was a fire and explosion that broke out in occupied Merino district, but witnesses report loud blasts and massive smoke near the university, and emergency services are now on site. So let's take a look and see exactly what is happening. And as you can see, this is allegedly the site of a university near Marino, and it looks like there's a lot of things on fire. It's really hard to tell exactly what has taken place here. It could maybe be an arson even, because it looks like a lot of shrubberies on fire in multiple different spots, which would indicate that maybe someone started it, or maybe it was hit by a drone or some type of munition. So I'm not really sure, but as you can see, something very odd taking place there in Marino. But moving on to our next one, this one goes to Military News Ukraine. And we also have some more reports of damage as well, because yesterday we saw that Ukrainian aviation using a precision-guided missile destroyed a bridge across the Konka River in Oleshki in the Kherson region. So we do have a video showing this right here, basically a huge destruction of a bridge by the Ukrainians that the Russians were using to try to get across into their territory. So let's take a look at the video. And as you can see right there, there's half a bridge still standing, and there is no bridge standing. The whole thing just went down. And thankfully, as we can see in the watermark, this is Kherson non-fake. So this is the real one. So as you can see right there, the bridge came down, and whatever the Ukrainians used on that was quite powerful, because it literally took down a whole span of bridge, even across one of these piles right here. So that was a lot of ordnance. But as you can see, the bridge has come down inside of Kherson. But with that, we are now moving on to our next post, which goes to World Source News 24/7. And it's time to switch gears one more time, because we have news from other areas around the world, including Panama and also out of China as well. But starting off with our Panama news here, we have learned today that Panama has been plunged into a countrywide power outage after a blast and subsequent blaze damaged a generator at one of their thermoelectric facilities overnight. So once again, I'm not really sure what has caused this. It's kind of unusual, but it sounds like there was an explosion at a power plant and nobody's really sure what caused it. But of course, Panama is a very hot spot right now, because of course there's a issue going on with the Panama Canal, and also there's an issue going on with a Panama company selling part of the canal away from China and to an American company. So there appears to be some reasons that people might want to do this to Panama, but right now we don't have enough information to say who's behind it. But very fascinating timing on this. But let's take a look and see what we have. And taking a look here at the video, you can see there's a lot of smoke out there in the distance, and that is from the thermoelectric plant. As you can see, there were some flashes actually right there, apparently from some of the electrical equipment catching on fire as well, and there's a lot of them actually. So that is a bad spot to be near, would be that right there. But as you can see, it is going up in blazes, and it plunged Panama into an entire power outage across their entire country. So very interesting to see, and I wish we had more details on that. But jumping into our next one, this one goes to OSINT Defender. And in this post right here, we have some very big news out of China, because we've heard that a Chinese J-15 fighter with the People's Liberation Army Navy, believed to have launched from a nearby aircraft carrier during a training exercise, they crashed earlier today within Lingao County on the Hainan Island near the South China Sea. The pilot was able to successfully eject before being rescued by local residents, with the crash not being reported to have caused any significant damage or casualties on the ground, but of course a total loss of the J-15. And the videos and pictures have surfaced, and they're being purged from Chinese social media. So we do have the pictures and the video evidence here. So let's take a look at our first image. And as you can see in this photo, there is the J-15 going straight into the ground in a very remarkable photo. There appears to be the canopy of the cockpit off to the left, which was of course removed from the top when the pilot pulled the eject pin. And over there on the right, you can see there's one of the pilot with his parachute about to deploy. So the guy got out, but as you can see, that plane was literally heading straight into the ground in this remarkable photo. But moving into our video, let's take a look. Oh, damn. And there it goes. Look at that. Straight into the ground. There's the pilot over there, but look at that. And you can hear the town criers right here crying. And this first guy here went, ugh, whenever it crashed, because he was so disgusted by it. But as you can see, the pilot did get out, and there's the humongous fireball from it right there as well. That is wild to see that on video, by the way. That was during a training exercise near the South China Sea. So China lost one of their J-15s in this crash. Very big to see. But also, we have another video showing the pilot being rescued from the wreckage, or at least nearby to the wreckage, after he ejected. So let's take a look. So as you can see, there is the pilot actually walking after that incident. And by the way, ejecting from an aircraft, that is a very, very bad thing on the body. And in fact, I've heard that it actually shrinks you a little bit whenever you actually get ejected from an aircraft, because it compresses the spine so much. I'm not sure if that's a myth or not. If you're a fighter pilot out there, let me know if that's true, but I've heard that. But as you can see, the guy is literally walking away from the crash right here in the video, which is insane to see. And there he is, just being let off. So all these videos, by the way, are being removed from Chinese social media. The the CCP does not want anybody to see this because, of course, it's a failure and they don't like to publicize failures. So we can see that right there. But moving in and away from the story right here to our next post, this one goes to Apex News. And we also have some news out of Japan as well. And right now we're hearing that Japan is considering deploying long-range missiles on the southwestern island of Kyushu as part of the country's efforts to acquire counter-strike capabilities to hit enemy targets in the event of an emergency, sources say, according to Kyoto. So it looks like Japan is ramping up its security of its island. And of course, there are a lot of threats around Japan. Of course, there's North Korea. There's always the lurking China threat as well. And there's also other threats that we're not even going to cover right now. But Japan is taking this seriously, and they're actually getting ready to deploy long-range missiles on one of their islands. So Japan is ramping things up a bit, and just a piece of news coming out of that region. But with that, folks, that's actually our last piece of news of the day. So I hope you all enjoyed this video, and before you go, smack the like button and also subscribe to the channel as well if you enjoyed today's video, and also go down to the comments below and put LSA to let us know you watched the video to this point. We appreciate all of our viewers, and also, if you want to support the channel financially, you can do so on our Patreon page, and the link is in the description below for Patreon, where you can go over there and sign up for a monthly membership and support the channel on a monthly basis, which is a massive help, by the way, and a huge shout out to our Patreon supporters for helping to make the channel possible. And we usually post over there quite often these days, more than usual, because we're trying to get the post really ramped up on our Patreon, and we have a lot of recent posts. So go check out the Patreon if you're interested, and also, we will see you all at tonight at 10 p.m. Eastern on the next Night of War News streaming, and of course, be sure to join us then. But for now, bye-bye for now.